Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In the Yard Podcast with your hosts, Collin and Braeden Cox. And we are approaching Week 10 of the NFL season, right in the middle here. Right past the middle of the regular season, I should say, as record here on November 9th. So Braeden and I are going to give you our thoughts, our reactions, who we think are real contenders, who we think are pretenders, and everything in between right here on In the Yard. So let's start with, Braeden, I think you said you want to start with the NFC side of things. Your Packers over there. You got the Eagles, the Niners, the Detroit Lions. So give me your brief rundown of the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, I think we start at the top. I think we start with those birds in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. 8-1, having a very impressive season. I would say, I don't know what you would think, but they don't look as good as they did last year. But the record's 8-1. We can't deny that. I would definitely say they're a contender. To me, they're the best team right now in the NFC. They're fresh off a win against those Dallas Cowboys, which is huge for division standings. When push comes to shove, they're 2 games ahead of Dallas now. And Philadelphia has a tough schedule coming up. I know they got Kansas City and whatnot. And people will argue that they haven't really been tested yet. But they have had home games against the Dolphins, which, we'll definitely talk about the Dolphins because we have different opinions there. But they did beat the Dallas Cowboys, which many consider to be a contender in the NFC. So, what do you think?
I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think they kind of look better than they did last year.
Okay.
Things are starting to click a little more. You got the tush push. They're running that even at a higher rate, it seems, and it's even more unstoppable than last year. I haven't really watched Eagles like games really, but 8-1 is 8-1. I know a lot of people make the argument that they barely win games, like they're not as dominant as they were last year. But I just think right now they're by far the best team in the NFC, and I think last year you could argue Niners or Eagles were up there, but I think right now as we record here on November 9th, I think the Eagles are the top dog of the NFC, kind of undisputedly.
Yeah, something that the Eagles do better than any team in the NFL. Maybe you can make an argument for Kansas City, at least this season, of course being the two number 1 seeds in the NFL, is they win ugly, right? They win the game, but it's never pretty, right? They play Washington close. They play Miami close for 3 quarters. They play Dallas down to the line. And of course, like I said, Dallas is one of the contenders in the NFC. But they don't blow anybody out, if you've noticed. They're all 10 points or less, it seems, 10, 14 around there. But more often than not, it's close to being 1-score games regardless. It's Dallas and Washington. Right? And those 2 teams we wouldn't put in the same, tier.
Yeah. You can say that the Eagles sometimes do play down to their opponent's level.
They do. Absolutely. I'm with you there. But they win ugly. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be pretty. They don't need to be all glamorous and whatnot. They can kind of rough it out and get the win.
Yeah, I just think they look better than they did last year, just because I feel like there was a little bit of a drop off in the NFC since last year.
Sure.
Especially with teams like the 49ers, Rodgers, even the Packers, and other teams over there in the NFC. So I just think Eagles right now, they would have to be the favorite, especially since the Niners now have 3 losses. Yep. And then also in the NFC, who else really is there to worry about? I mean, you have the Cowboys. I wouldn't be afraid of them. Giants are awful. Packers, very average, like you said. What are some other NFC?
Yeah, I mean, in the NFC...
Seahawks, I'm just not buying into any of these teams, that could actually beat the Eagles right now. I think that just makes the Eagles, that much better. I'm not saying their roster or their game planning is better than it was last year, but I just think they're farther away just because these other teams are kind of... not as good as
taking a step back. Sure. Yeah. I agree with you. I would honestly say, and you mentioned the 49ers, who a lot of people picked coming out of the NFC. I still think that they're going to figure it out, shifting just to the 49ers here. Their question mark is Purdy because he started the season, the first 5 games or so. he was probably a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He was playing, and then he kind of fell off.
Right.
They had some tough games in there, like Cleveland, and I'm not making excuses for them. Obviously, they should beat a team like Cleveland, but Cleveland's got a nasty defense. You know, they're a wild card team right now in the AFC. The Minnesota loss was tight. They should have won that game. And then their third loss, I forget who it was to. Let me actually check real quick.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh yeah, that's right, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Bengals.
And we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, but you know,
obviously,
you can't really. I'm not too worried about them yet. I would say, for me in the NFC,
and Debo's out, and it's only a matter of time, I think, till Brock Purdy gets going again.
And Trent Williams is out. You know what I mean? They had a bye week. They can get healthy. Purdy had the concussion. They're going to play Jacksonville on the road this weekend, so it's a big game. You know, if they walk into that game with, you know, if Purdy plays, you know, somewhat of how he played in the first 5 games of the season, I would pick him in that game, even with how well Jacksonville is playing, just because that defense is undeniable. But I would say it's probably a 3-legged race in the NFC between Philadelphia, San Fran, and the Detroit Lions.
Right.
I would definitely throw the Detroit Lions in there just because Dan Campbell is cooking up something special. Jared Goff, not the most, like, glamorous, like, you know, flashy quarterback. Mm-hmm. They're not a very flashy team. They're kind of just like it seemed to me they're like an old school
they get the job done.
Football. They get the job done. They don't do anything crazy. There's no like tush push or anything going on. They just go out and they win games. And 6-2, I know that they recently did get blown out by Baltimore, but I think that, you know, of course it's tough playing Lamar. I think he's like 17 or 18-1 against the NFC in his career, which is just insane, and people don't talk about that enough. But Seattle's still, you know, a good team, like that, a great team, I would say. So I don't look at that too much. So I would say probably Philadelphia, Detroit, and the 49ers are. You can maybe convince me on the Cowboys right now, but those would be my 3.
Okay, so would you say the Eagles are the best of those 3 teams, though?
Definitely. Right now, I would say right now it's Eagles. I think Detroit is clicking better, so I put Detroit at 2 as they are ranked or in the standings. And I put the 49ers at 3, but I think if you let the 49ers get hot, I don't remember exactly what my Super Bowl pick was. I think I picked Philly, but I may have picked San Fran. It was one of those 2 teams. Like, I think when push comes to shove, if the 49ers figure it out, it's going to be between the 49ers and the Eagles. Because I think they're roster-wise, talent-wise, they're going to be the best. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah, they have the talent, also the experience now, too.
Yeah.
Especially over, like, you know, the Seahawks. Geno Smith, he's your quarterback there. And then, you know, Lions just missed the playoffs last year. Jared Goff does have that playoff experience. But, yeah, we'll see. I think it's a good point in saying those NFC teams are the top 3.
Another point about Detroit is they've only played 1 divisional game all season, right? And I know that the NFC North is kind of a mess now because Green Bay is very you know, Vikings just lost Kirk Cousins for the season, but Dobbs looks like he could be the answer there. And the Bears are the Bears, right? But they've only played 1 divisional games, and all division games are always close. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So they're playing a lot of out-of-conference games to start, and their back half of their season, you know, they're 6-2, so that means like their last 8 or 9 games, like over half of those are divisional games, which is something to note too.
Win. No matter who it is, division
absolutely
is really tough.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, that's a good point. So do you want to head over to the AFC side of things now?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to talk about left in the NFC. I mean, Dallas, you know, played really well. Props to Dallas for playing that well at Philadelphia.
They did play well, yeah.
I think as it stands right now,
my take with Dallas is they decide not to show up till the 4th quarter, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's
too little too late at that point.
And Dak played well the whole game. I think you got to give Dak a lot of credit. The thing that worries me about Dallas is you have Philadelphia in your division. You know what I mean? So, like, right now, I think pretty much we'd all say that Philadelphia is going to win that division, meaning you're going on the road in the postseason. It's tough.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think for the most part, it seems like Philadelphia has owned the Cowboys the past couple of years now. So, it's just something to think about going into the playoffs if they meet each other again.
Yeah, and I would say probably, I don't know when they play. It's probably going to be either late November or early December.
It's like next December 10th or something.
something like that
like
in
that.
Dallas, I would not be shocked at all if Dallas is favored in that game, just because it's a home game. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. The whole world's going to be watching. It might, because Philadelphia has a tough schedule coming up. I don't know. Like, they got Kansas City and other teams coming, so we don't know what the standings are going to look like. But I wouldn't be shocked if that game, like, I'm not going to say decided the division, but drastically impacted the playoff picture for both these teams and other teams as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of telling games coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so that'll be fun to watch.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think heading over to the AFC side of things.
Yeah.
Obviously Chiefs. My Bengals are getting back to where they were last year. Bills not looking super hot. You got the Dolphins. And then who else we got over there? AFC
Baltimore,
South.
Jacksonville.
The Texans, the young Texans, the Ravens. Yeah. Oh yeah, can't forget about the Ravens. Steelers, Browns, they're all in the mix. So yeah, as of right now, all of the AFC North teams, if the playoffs started today, would be in the playoffs, which I feel like is shocking considering it's week 10 now. So halfway through the season, AFC North takes up half the spots in the playoffs, which I think is crazy. I don't think anyone really expected that many teams from the AFC North to be in there. But yeah, let's start with the AFC North. I think right now the Ravens are the favorite. They look really good, and they're not just winning games; they're dominating through games. They blew out the Lions a couple weeks ago, just blew out the Seahawks, and they just look really good on all cylinders. Defense, Lamar's having an MVP caliber season, and yeah, they just look really good right now.
Yeah, I mean, just on the Ravens, like they're. Something that they're doing that they haven't done in previous years is they look really good on both sides of the ball. It almost is looking like, to me, I know Lamar won MVP in 2019. This is his best season. This is the best he's looked, the most comfortable he's looked. Because in previous seasons, he's been much more likely to snap the ball and immediately dart and run the ball. Now, he still has that in his back pocket, but it's almost like secondary. He's got a gun. He can throw the ball. Anybody who is out here all these years, and I've been a Lamar defender since day one, who was like, oh, he's a running back, that's all he'll ever be. He's probably better than your quarterback, whoever's saying that. Like right now, he's playing tremendous football. Right. And the defense is lights out, probably a top 3 defense in the NFL right now. Right now, you'd have to say they're probably the favorite to win that division. What I will say, though, is the past, 2-3 seasons, Lamar has looked really good through the first half of the season, and then he gets an injury, and that does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
another thing, Brandon, is there's a lot of talk with the Lamar free agency in the offseason. Like, what if he was even coming back to the Ravens? Or, they could have franchise tagged him for another year. Sure. And maybe he would have sat out. But you think everything's worked out in his favor now, and now they're kind of the favorites to win the AFC, I would say, at this point, maybe even over the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I know the Kansas City Chiefs have the tiebreaker, right, over Baltimore, so they're the 1 seed. But I would say the team that looks the best in the AFC has to be Baltimore, just across the board. Both sides of the ball, blowing out.
As a Bengals fan, I agree.
Blowing out teams that are playoff teams. We're talking about the Detroit Lions. We're talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Like, that is it's no joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big, not this week, but the week after, Thursday night, is Bengals-Ravens in Baltimore. So that'll be
huge game.
That'll be a good tell. Huge game for the AFC North, huge game for the Ravens, huge game for the Bengals. So yeah, pretty pumped for that. So let's go, let's stay in the AFC North and let's talk about my Bengals.
Sure.
Slow start off 1-3. A lot of questions surrounding Joe Burrow and their defense, their offensive line, like almost everything, right? T. Higgins wasn't healthy; he wasn't playing super well. But last week they go into San Fran, get a pretty dominant win there, and then this week, take care of the Bills on Sunday Night Football. So yeah, I'm happy to see Joe Burrow back and healthy. Happy to see their offense clicking a little bit, defense making plays. I still want to see a complete game from my Bengals, though. I feel like they either have a good first half or a good second half. This past week, it was a good first half. Little bit, slow down a little bit the second half. Got to give credit to Sean McDermott and the Bills and his adjustments there. But I just want to see a full, complete game of my Cincinnati Bengals. And that once they put a full game together, I could start calling them like officially back.
Yeah, it's funny because they're the third wild card team, so there's 7 teams that make the playoffs. They're 7th ranked. Of all the teams that are in the playoffs right now, the playoff picture, right? Despite them being the 7th seed, they're probably the team I trust the most right now. Maybe that's because they've won their past 4 games, but Kansas City has questions. They seem to figure it out, but they definitely have question marks, right? Mm-hmm. Baltimore, your Lamar injury seems likely. I hope it doesn't happen, but it seems just
especially with his play style.
Yes, so. Absolutely. And the Jags, still a young team, still a lot to learn. I give the edge to the Bengals there just based on experience. Dolphins, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. To me, they're the team I would trust the most if I got into the playoffs, especially if they went in as a wild card team.
Yeah.
If they got Jacksonville that first game, even on the road, I'd probably pick them. Depends how they're playing at the time.
I'd be a little bit afraid of the Jaguars in Jacksonville. You know, they're kind of sparky. You know, they're young. They got Trevor Lawrence, a solid quarterback there. Good defense. Like, I think I wouldn't say Jaguars, the Bengals would be able to roll right over them. But definitely right now I would not want to see in this order Ravens, Chiefs, Jaguars.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I'm not really worried about any other teams. The NFC, knock on wood. Hopefully I don't jinx that. But
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I just, the way that the Bengals are playing football right now, Joe Burrow, probably, I'm not even kidding, probably one of the best games I've seen a quarterback play in a couple seasons is the way that Joe Burrow played against the San Francisco 49ers 2 weeks ago. That was I watched the whole game. It was a near flawless game, right? Against a good team that, yes, they had a few injuries on defense, but was still ranked probably the number 1 defense in the NFL at the time. And he made it look easy, right? So, again, like you said, cross your fingers, knock on wood, that you don't have to worry about any of these other teams. But I trust them. I would trust them right now. They got experience. They've been to 2 AFC Championship games in a row. They've been to a Super Bowl. So,
all right, let's hit the Steelers and the Browns real quick, and then we'll head over to the AFC East. I feel like that'll be a fun topic. Steelers and Browns would also still be in the playoffs. Browns, you could kind of expect them to be there. They're a good team. Steelers, though, I don't think anyone was really expecting them to be good. But I think you were talking about this before, but they're just so average. Like, their defense is solid, super scrappy, keeps them in games, and they give the offense a chance to win. And then that's what ends up happening. They end up scrapping it out, especially in Pittsburgh a lot. But I'm not worried about the Steelers if the Bengals come to town against them, or if they come into town against Cincinnati, especially if the Bengals are healthy and clicking on all cylinders like they have been the past couple weeks.
Sure.
I don't know if the Steelers can keep this run up. I just feel like they're just so average. I think you were talking about this earlier. They're just super average. I don't want to jinx it, but they're just not a threat to me.
And listen, I think if the Steelers and Bengals were to meet in the playoffs right now, the Bengals would have to be favored even if they were on the road, because the Pittsburgh offense, I don't think would be able to keep up with them. Like, defensively, Pittsburgh's got a nasty defense. You got TJ Watt playing well. That's why they're able to scrap out wins, right? Is because their defense, and Kenny kind of just does just enough in most cases to kind of win. But that game against Tennessee last week, right? They scraped that out against a rookie quarterback. It felt like they were in control for most of the game. But it was still close. But then a few weeks prior, they played terribly against the Houston Texans. You know what I mean? You never really know what you're going to get, but the defense is... Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not saying they'd be a cakewalk, especially, since it's a division rival. It's always going to be a tough game.
Sure.
But the Bengals are the better team, in my opinion. Maybe a little biased there, but, anything can happen, especially with a division opponent in the playoffs. So,
I would agree with you 100%. I picked the Steelers to be that 7th seed. I still think that they're going to make the playoffs, just because of how the defense plays, and they do just enough. Tomlin's an incredible coach. if I pick them to make the playoffs, I will definitely not pick them to win that first game in the wild card round. I don't care who they're playing. I would not pick them. But right now, I mean, I had my 3 wild card teams going into the playoffs or go in the preseason when we were talking about the playoffs were the Ravens at 5, the Jets at 6, and the Steelers at 7. And the Jets, obviously, unfortunately, with Aaron Rodgers. But as soon as that Rodgers injury happened, I said probably the Cleveland Browns were going to be my pick just because I knew their defense was going to be good. But they're very similar to Pittsburgh. They have a weird quarterback situation where they're paying Deshaun a lot of money, but he's not necessarily playing. And he's played good in some games and really bad in others, and PJ Walker has played good at times. So it's a weird kind of QB like rotation that they're running there. But I think they remind me of the Steelers in the sense that they're going to be able to just – it's kind of just going to happen. They're just going to end up in the playoffs, and regardless of who they're playing, I wouldn't pick them to win.
So right now, are you saying all 4 AFC North teams would make the playoffs?
Yeah, I said that. I said that as soon as Rodgers went down. I said all 4 teams in the AFC are going to make it. It's going to be Cincinnati, Baltimore. I said the Steelers were going to be the 7th seed, but I probably put the Steelers ahead of Cleveland.
All right, fair. All right, let's get to the AFC East here.
Sure.
Last 4 minutes. So we have the Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and the Patriots. So I think most of this discussion is going to be around my father's Miami Dolphins. I'm still kind of buying into their system. I think they're going to make the playoffs, especially with the Bills have been playing. They look a little shaky. But I know you told me the other day you're still not buying into Miami, haven't been a team over 500 in the past couple seasons, except for like 1 game, I think. And just had that tough loss to the Chiefs last week in Germany. So tell me why, Brady, you still think the Miami Dolphins will not be making the playoffs.
Yeah, so I mean, at the beginning of the season, I picked Miami to be the first team out of the playoffs. So I had Kansas City, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Jets, and Baltimore. If I said Baltimore twice, I don't know. I don't remember. But regardless, I had the Dolphins missing the playoffs for basically every reason that they've proven thus far this season, that they can beat up on really good teams, but when it's time to play a good team, they kind of disappear. And I think it comes down to their defense, right? I just don't think that their defense is like, they've got Jalen Ramsey. It's not like they don't have dudes, but it's just like, it doesn't seem like they can kind of figure out in big games. And I also like Mike McDaniels a lot. I think he's a fun, quirky guy. He's kind of like a nerd that just knows the game so well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to describe the guy. He's like a nerd of the
quirky
game.
Is a good word. Quirky is a good word.
He's very quirky, right? But I feel like they do too much pre-snap, too, right? And I get you've got Tyreek and you got Waddle. Like, you got an explosive offense. But still, I mean, I don't really care that you beat the Broncos by 50. You know what I mean? Like, where were they when they played Philly? They played Philly decent for the first half, but it felt like Philly was pretty much in control of that whole game. They had a shot against the Chiefs, but they were non-existent in the first half. If they would have played semi-decent football in the first half, they probably would have won the game or at least been able to, take the overtime or whatever it may be. I just don't buy them, like, I guess the best way to put it is, like, I've got, like, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Jags, and the Bills. That's, like, the tier 1 of the AFC. And then the Dolphins are in the tier 2, like the first team in the tier 2, right? Where I think those first 5 teams
just because they
are,
haven't
like,
proven anything, yeah.
They haven't proven anything, and at the end of the day, like, I would trust any one of those 5 teams, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Jags, the Bills, and the Bengals over them. Right? So to me, it seems like, and I've gotten a lot of hate from a lot of people talking about this.
I'm still buying into the Dolphins. Like,
they're
I'm
like,
not buying into them, but I still think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, people have been telling me, like, oh, you're hating on Miami. I'm like, dude, they've beaten, like, one team over 500 in 2 seasons. Right? Like, that can get you to the playoffs, but I can't put them in tier. I haven't seen enough. I mean, obviously explosive on offense, but I would still say any of those 5 teams that I listed. So I'm still going to pick the Bills. The Bills aren't playing great, but I trust them. They're more experienced. And when the Bills and Miami faced off, the Bills blew them out. So enough said to me.
All right. So one more question under a minute here. Will the Chargers make the playoffs real quick,
No,
Braeden?
Absolutely not. No. They're playing decent football now. They're 4-4. I just don't buy Staley as a coach. I think they need to go get like a Harbaugh or something. Even though there's all those issues with Michigan, they need to do something different. I don't think he's the answer because there's talent everywhere. You know what I mean? So,
what about the Texans, real quick? Texans. Bengals play Texans this week.
Maybe over a team like Cleveland or Pittsburgh. Stroud's playing great. So
yeah, fun, young, and watch. Thanks everyone for listening. In the yard, like, comment, subscribe, and those are our football takes. Sorry we had a rush here at the end, running low on time, but thanks for listening and go Bengals.